Let's stop pretending, shall we? Freemasons are in the police. That's not speculation, it's not a theory, that's openly acknowledged. The only question is, why does one police force believe that's worth declaring, and another one doesn't even think it's worth reviewing? Because here's what's just happened. Norfolk Constabulary has confirmed it will not review its policy on Freemasons, even though a High Court case backed the idea that disclosure can be justified. Not banned, not restricted, just declared. And the response? No review needed. And of course, nothing says public confidence like, don't ask, don't disclose, don't worry about it. Now compare that to the Metropolitan Police. They have introduced a requirement for officers to declare Freemason membership. Why? Because of concerns. Concerns around conflict of interest, undisclosed loyalties, public perception bias. Not proven corruption, but enough concern to say, we should probably know who's connected to who. Radical idea. And this isn't just internal policy. The High Court looked at this and it backed the principle that requiring disclosure is lawful, proportionate, and tied into maintaining public confidence. Crucially, it recognised that even the perception of bias matters, not just actual wrongdoing. So, on one hand, you've got one police force saying transparency helps us, and on the other hand, you've got the Norfolk Constabulary going, no, we're not even going to review it. Fuck off. Consistency within the police altogether is clearly optional. And let's be precise, because this is where people get it twisted sometimes. Nobody is saying Freemasons equals corruption. Maybe not so much on the lower levels anyway. Which in turn means that membership doesn't then automatically equal guilt. And so that's not the argument. The argument is much simpler. If you have a private organisation with internal loyalty operating inside public institutions, should that be declared? Well, apparently that depends on your postcode. And this is where it gets slightly more awkward, because this isn't really about Freemasons. It's about visibility of influence. The court didn't say ban it, it said disclose it. Because undisclosed connections, especially within policing, create risk, even if nothing improper actually happens. Which makes sense, because justice isn't just about being fair, it's about being seen to be fair. But let's spin it round. If an officer had undisclosed ties to a corporation, undisclosed political affiliations, or undisclosed financial interests, would we accept, no, we're not reviewing that? Of course not. But add a centuries-old private network with layered membership, and suddenly it's, let's not overthink it. And here's the part that nobody wants to say out loud. Refusing to review something isn't the same as proving that there isn't an issue. It just means you've decided not to look. And that's the contrast here. One force says that they'll manage the risk through transparency. The other, we don't see a need to check. Same country, same legal framework, but totally different standards. Now factor in the wider context. Public trust in policing is already at an all-time low and under much pressure. And when people hear bumpkin police officers saying, there are undisclosed networks within the police system and we're not reviewing them, that doesn't calm anybody down. It does the opposite. Because trust isn't built on reassurance alone. It's built on openness, on showing your workings, on proving that there's nothing to hide. Or alternatively, just skip all that and say, trust us. That always works. So let me ask this. If transparency strengthens trust, what does refusing transparency do? What's that? Yeah, it creates doubt. Not proof, not evidence, just doubt. And once doubt sets in, people start asking questions about influence, about connections, about decisions being made behind closed doors, even if nothing improper has been going on. But the appearance of bias is enough to damage confidence. So when a police force says, "We're not reviewing this policy," the message isn't "there's no problem." The message is, "We're not interested in checking it." Which kind of makes perfect sense when you consider if you have a break-in and you ring the police, all you get is a crime number. They can't even be bothered to come out and visit unless you've said a naughty on Facebook. And so here's where it gets quietly absurd, because think about how modern policing operates. Every decision is logged. Every action is scrutinised. Every officer is expected to account for what they did, where they did it, and whether or not it can withstand external review. Paper trails everywhere, audit culture, oversight bodies, layers upon layers of accountability, supposedly, except apparently when it comes to this. Then suddenly the appetite for documentation quietly disappears. And it's a kind of strange contradiction, don't you think? Because the system demands so much transparency from us, the public. Declare your income, declare your interests, declare your associates. Miss something out? Problem. But inside the system? Well, let's not get too carried away. Transparency for thee, discretion for me. And this is where the perception starts doing all the heavy lifting. Because you don't need proof of misconduct for confidence to erode. You just need unanswered questions, uneven standards, and selective curiosity. And that's enough. Now consider something else. Policing isn't just enforcement, it's discretion. Every day officers making judgment calls. Who to stop, who to question, what to prioritise, what to overlook. And those decisions aren't always visible. They don't always come with a written explanation. They exist in the grey areas. So when people hear that there could be undisclosed networks of affiliation, they don't immediately think, harmless. They think, well, how does that play out in those grey areas? And that's not paranoia, that's pattern recognition. Because institutions don't just run on rules, they run on relationships. Who knows who trusts who, and who gives the benefit of the doubt. And none of that ever gets logged into the system. And the uncomfortable layer that lies beneath all of this, if there's truly nothing to worry about, then disclosure changes nothing. It doesn't harm careers, it doesn't block progression, and it doesn't accuse anyone of any wrongdoing. It just exists as information. So resisting it raises another question. Not what are they hiding, because that's too dramatic. More like, why is this the line? Police get reviewed all the time, constantly. Use of force, stop and search, data handling, misconduct procedures. Nothing is too sacred to revisit. Except this one. This one's apparently locked in. No updates required. And on a system supposedly built on scrutiny, that stands out. Because when transparency is easy and yet still avoided, people don't assume confidence. They assume caution. And sometimes caution can tell you more than investigations ever could. But do let me know what you think in the comments, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Truth, freedom and unity return to Norfolk this summer. Join the Thetford Truth and Freedom Festival on July 17th and 18th, 2026 at the Angel Inn, Larling. 2 days where like-minded men and women gather to share ideas, raise the frequency and explore truth. From 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, enjoy guest speakers, topical presentations, then from 7 p.m. to midnight, relax with live bands, singers and a resident DJ. Camping pitches for tents or vehicles, with or without hookups, are available at a reduced rate for festival goers. Book directly with the Angel Inn reception on 01953 717 963 with street food, festival stalls and real ales, all for just £20 a ticket. This is more than a festival. It's a gathering inspired by the spirit of Thomas Paine. July 17th and 18th, the Angel Inn, Larling.